What's up? Clayton Sayfie here with the Wolverine.com. I am with Austin Fox, EJ Holland. We are recap our weekend going out and seeing Michigan recruits. Saw a lot of them. EJ saw quite a few. Austin saw one. I saw a batch of Michigan targets as well. So we'll get into all of that. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe here, head over to the Wolverine.com as well. Use promo code Blue60 if you're not a subscriber already. You can get 2 free months of our premium content where we go a little more in depth. We got highlights of all these guys on the site as well. So we'll start with Austin. You saw Taishan Trent, a 4-star 2022 wide receiver. Austin also played on the defensive side of the ball, right? In Michigan, targeting him as an athlete. Can you just talk a little bit about what you saw out of him, what impressed you, maybe some things that you still wanted to see out of him after watching a game?
Yeah, like you said, he's in the class of 2022, and he plays for East Point High School, and they played at Grosse Pointe North High School on Friday night, and it was an absolute destruction. East Point won 50-0, and they had a lot of athletes on the field, not just Taishan Trent, but Trent only finished with one catch on the night, but it was a big one. It was a 76-yard touchdown pass. It was actually a short screen pass, only about 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he took it 76 yards to the house. And what was most impressive on the play was his speed. He outran the entire Grosse Pointe North defense and looked like really by far the fastest player on the field on the play. So that was good to see. At 6'4", 205, I thought they would take more advantage of his height, but they really didn't throughout the night. They threw to him a handful of times, but most of the passes thrown his way were either uncatchable or severely overthrown. They did throw him to him twice in the end zone, and one he dropped. It hit him in the hands, and he just flat out dropped it. And another one he made a beautiful one-handed grab on right along the sideline on the corner of the end zone, but the ref said he was out of bounds. But he was adamant after the game that he was in. So, again, he only finished with one catch, but he played defense the entire night as well. He played outside linebacker, and he looked pretty good there too. He was constantly around the ball near the line of scrimmage. I think Grosse Pointe North tried to run away from him most of the night, but again, he was around the ball a lot. And he said afterward he can cover receivers with no problem as well either if East Point needs him to. I was also impressed with his blocking as a wide receiver. There was one play in particular, and I tweeted this out, where he just went full speed at his guy, a defending cornerback, and had no problem drilling him into the ground. And I asked him about it afterwards, and as soon as I brought it up, he burst out laughing. So he said he takes a lot of pride in blocking, and that was pretty obvious to see. He's rated as the number 229 overall player in the country, and as of now, he does seem to be one of Michigan's main targets in that 2022 class. He said Sherrone Moore and Josh Gaddis contact him several times a week, and Jim Harbaugh texted him before Friday night's game as well. I asked him what position they see him as, and he actually said that he's not sure yet. He said that he'd like to play receiver in college, but he would have no problem playing outside linebacker if it comes down to that as well. I think he takes pride in his versatility because he lists himself as an athlete on his Twitter account. But when considering that Sherrone Moore and Josh Gaddis contact him several times a week, I think it's obvious that they see him as an offensive prospect. And again, he said he talks to Jim Harbaugh quite often as well. So it's early, but I think he's one of the primary targets to keep an eye on in Michigan's 2022 class.
Yeah, he definitely. I saw that clip that you tweeted of the pancake block. He deserves some pancakes, or at least deserved some on Saturday morning. EJ, I know you know a little bit about Taishan Trent. What are your thoughts? I mean, I know Austin saw him most recently at his game, but what do you think of him?
Yeah, I saw him at practice a couple of months ago. Like Austin mentioned, he's big, he's physical. He stars on the defensive side of the ball too. When I talked to his high school coach, he told me, "Don't be surprised if Trent ends up playing defense at the next level." And usually high school coaches are pretty cautious. They usually are like, "Oh, well, my guy's great, and he'll play the position that he's playing or whatever," because they want to say the most positive thing. The fact that his coach was just like upfront, like, yeah, he's probably going to play defense, I think speaks volumes. While Michigan's recruiting him on the offensive side of the ball, I would just consider Trent a straight athlete, guy that could end up either way. I mean, he could play receiver, but he's just so big right now. He could be a Y, which, may be a reason Coach Moore's involved. But I feel like, honestly, he's just, he plays kind of at sort of an inner city school. So he's still really, really raw from a technical standpoint. So I think he's just a guy you kind of bring in and big dude, big athletic dude, and figure out what to do with him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he definitely seems like a physical type of player. So definitely one to keep an eye on in 2022. I'll talk about my game. I was at West Bloomfield at Clarkston on Friday night. It was actually televised on Fox Sports Detroit. Clarkston, of course, the home of Notre Dame offensive line commit Rocco Spindler, LSU offensive line commit Garrett Dellinger, and both of those guys had a huge impact on this game. I'll kind of talk about how the game went in general, just because there was so many targets out there, including those two guys I just mentioned. But West Bloomfield has Donovan Edwards, Rivals 100 running back in 2021, the top Michigan target remaining on the board. And then 2022, athlete, wide receiver, running back, defensive back Dylan Tatum. He was really impressive. I'll talk about him. And then 2023, offensive lineman Amir Herring. And 2022, athlete Michael Williams. So West Bloomfield was the team I had my eye on. But it was an interesting game because they were really trying to get West Bloomfield was really trying to get Donovan Edwards and Dylan Tatum on the edge just because of how much beef is up front for Clarkston. They did a good job of that, but things kind of stalled out in the second half. So West Bloomfield blew a 21-7 lead. The game went to overtime, 21-21. Clarkston hit a field goal. West Bloomfield absolutely botched their field goal attempt, and that was a game disappointing loss. And I'll talk about Edwards, and I'll start there. He was super disappointed in the loss. He didn't want to talk to any media after the game, and there was quite a few people there waiting to talk to him. And he declined respectfully, and I totally respected it from my standpoint of things. So, but I'll talk about his game. He played receiver most of the night. When I saw him a couple weeks prior, he was at running back most of the night. But he shows that versatility week in and week out, and it was definitely the game plan again, like I said, to get him on the edge. He had an 80-yard touchdown reception on a screen pass that got called back due to an illegal formation. Not exactly sure about the call. Ron Bellamy, head coach, former Wolverine receiver, was not happy about it, but it showed that Edwards can make those big plays. EJ has talked about this in the past, that Donovan's not like a guy that necessarily is this just huge play guy with track speed and things like that, but he moves the chains, picks up 6 to 8 yards every time he touches the ball. So I was impressed with him from that aspect. He had 6 catches for probably about 40 yards, 5 carries for about 30 yards, including one 1-yard touchdown run out of the Wildcat where he jumped over the top and showed his athleticism in that aspect. So he was solid as always, and like EJ's talked about, like I just said, he's not necessarily the guy that's going to be that track speed making huge plays, even though he did have the one called back. But he's certainly impressive in every aspect and is the heart and soul of that team, the leader of that team. Going down the line with Dylan Tatum, Rivals 250 athlete in 2022. I wrote this after the game. He was the most impressive skilled player on the field, and that includes Donovan Edwards, of course. Dylan Tatum had an end-around touchdown run for 12 yards on the first drive of the game, actually after Edwards' touchdown got called back. He had an interception late in the game. He was blanketing his guy in coverage. Super impressive. I liked him a couple weeks prior when I saw him. He made even more plays on Friday night, and this is against a pretty good Clarkston team. Came up and made some hits as well, played on the edge, was playing nickel on defense, so I really like Dylan Tatum as a prospect. And then Amir Herring, the 2023 offensive lineman who projects as more of an interior guy at the college level, plays left tackle for West Bloomfield, absolutely planted his guy pancake block on Dylan Tatum's touchdown run. I like his aggressiveness. He had a tough matchup going against Dellinger and Rocco Spindler, who both play on the defensive side of the ball as well. But he held his own at times. There's other times where, it's evident that he needs to, be developed a little more physically, but he's just a sophomore. So impressed with him. And then 2022 4-star athlete Michael Williams was out with an injury once again. And again, looked minor. I said that a couple weeks ago when I saw him. So, would like to see him. Maybe we'll see him down the road, especially as playoffs start to come about. But overall, for those West Bloomfield guys, impressive, especially Dylan Tatum, especially Donovan Edwards. And then I like Amir Herring as a kind of a guy down the road that has a Michigan offer, and I think is super interested in Michigan as well. So a good game. Not gonna lie, I was kind of pulling for West Bloomfield. Last time I was at Clarkston before that was for the Rocco Spindler commitment ceremony, and I was back at Clarkston there. So it was a fun night overall. A lot of you guys were able to watch on Fox Sports Detroit as well, so that was kind of cool to be in that game thread and kind of talking to some people that were watching and having some good dialogue between fans and me who was there on the sidelines. But that's it from my game. EJ, I know you saw 5 games over the weekend, saw a ton of big time Michigan targets. You saw Derek Shepard in Dayton, defensive tackle, Dante Moore, quarterback. You got to see him for a half. Headliner being Will Johnson, though, 5-star 2022 corner, obviously a legacy recruit. And then I'm sure you'll get to this, but talking Tommy Doman, who I love in this class. And like you wrote, and I agree with you, he's a weapon as a kicker and punter. So talk about the guys you saw. I guess start with your Thursday and kind of take us through your trip a little bit.
Yeah, I'll try. I saw so many games. I'll try to kind of hit on everybody quickly. But before I do, I want to go back to something you said about Donovan Edwards. You're right. Like he is the consistent back, not necessarily, he's not a Christian McCaffrey. He's an Aaron Jones. And I've always used the Aaron Jones comparison, and everybody seems to hate it. And Aaron Jones literally puts up numbers every week, even though you don't think he does.
I was watching him last night on Monday Night Football, and I couldn't stop thinking of that comparison because I just saw Donovan on Friday, obviously, and Aaron Jones. It's honestly the perfect comparison, and it's not a knock on Donovan at all.
I don't know why people think Aaron Jones sucks. Like he's an RB1 for your fantasy leagues, but I mean he's a guy that's just going to pick up chunk yardage, make plays in the receiving end, and then he'll break a big one every now and then. So I mean he's a really good back. He's just I think not necessarily have to temper expectations, but you have to realize what you're getting, what type of back he is, as opposed to, as the savior of running back. Michigan has great running back depth anyway. So just wanted to kind of point that out. But to go through my trip, we won't try to waste too much time on everybody. So we'll start off with Thursday night. Actually, earlier in the day, I saw Rod Moore practice a little bit. It was more of a walkthrough, so not too many takeaways, but I'll have an update with Rod tomorrow. But yeah, first game of the night was, or of the trip was Derek Shepard, Rivals 100 defensive tackle out of Alter in Ohio, in the Dayton area. So Shepard is a guy that he's one of those guys that is at camps and just sees his ranking boom, and then it doesn't necessarily translate over to pads. So right now on Rivals, Shepard is the number 80 overall prospect in the country, which is obviously very high. And the other site has him as a mid 3-star. So obviously there's a huge difference in opinion as far as Shepard's ranking. I think I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. With Shepard, he is a big 300-pounder. He moves extremely well for his size. He was my top overall performer at that Under Armour camp in Ohio, so I can see why they bumped him, but that's why I'm hesitant to just like shoot guys up after camps. I can see why they bumped him because he has all the tools to be a great athletic defensive tackle. I compared his body type and his movement to Marvin Wilson, who will likely be, first or second round draft pick this year, a guy I covered in high school that's at Florida State. But unlike Marvin, Marvin was dominant on the field, and I still need to see that from Shepard. And, it's not really a knock on him because he didn't really get to play defensive tackle. He only saw 7 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. On those 7 snaps, he had one where he just showed that, top 100 potential. He burst through the A gap, blew up a play near the goal line. The other times he got double teamed, got pushed back too easily for my liking. But on the offensive side of the ball, he served up, a couple pancakes early on while the game was still competitive. He showed a mean streak. I mean, I kind of joked with another reporter. I was like, man, he could end up a guard at the next level, just because he was actually really good along the offensive line. I mean, he had more pancakes in the first 5 minutes than Greg Crippen had the entire night the last week I saw him. So I really do like Derek Shepard. For me, it's just like the evaluation's incomplete because I've seen him twice in pads, and both times I saw him practice last month as well, and he worked out exclusively at right tackle. So it's hard to give a true evaluation when you're not playing the position that you project at, or you're not getting any reps there. So especially for a defensive tackle. I think it's easier to evaluate, to project a skill position like a high school quarterback to a receiver or safety, I think is actually easier than projecting a guy that's playing right tackle to defensive tackle, in my opinion. So right now, I'd just say my evaluation's incomplete. I think the talent is there. I think the size and the athleticism is there, but I still want to see more in pads. And I just don't know how possible that will be with the way Alter is using him right now. So yeah, right now he's very high on Michigan, and Ohio State hasn't offered yet. So I think Michigan has a legit chance to land him as long as the Buckeyes don't get more involved. After spending the night in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, I drove halfway, and then went out to meet you guys for lunch in Ann Arbor. So that was fun. And then after that, I went to a weird Friday afternoon kickoff and saw Detroit King against Detroit Denby. And I mean, King beat the tar out of them. And, Dante Moore didn't have to do a whole lot. But he flashed. And I mean, I made it a point to see Dante Moore because it was an afternoon game, so it lended itself the opportunity, but also because he is a guy that Michigan fans are going to become obsessed with, even more so than Donovan Edwards in a couple of years, I feel like. So Dante Moore, top 2023 quarterback for King. This guy has all the tools. We've talked about him on the show before. He has an elite arm for his age. His patience in the pocket is also elite for his age. He truly progresses through his reads, dissects a defense, never leaves the pocket unless he has to. Doesn't really make a whole lot of plays with his feet. I actually think he has like a build. Again, I make 49er references all the time, but I feel like he has a build of a young Colin Kaepernick. And I'm like, man, I really want to see this guy run, but he never runs. So I don't know if he's like capable of running or not, but it doesn't really matter because he's such an elite passer that he just picks apart these, crappy public schools that he's playing against. And even when I saw him in a competitive game against Cass Tech, where he was facing constant pressure every down from Cass Tech's huge defensive line, just sat in the pocket and took hits. So right now he's truly a pro style passer and not a dual threat guy at all. I know someone asked that on the message board today. Again, he has the athletic profile to be a runner, but I've never seen him do it. And it's not a bad thing either. I mean, to be that young and to be able to progress through those reads and be able to sit in the pocket and not panic, I mean, speaks volumes of his ability. This is a guy that I think has 5-star potential. So really high on Dante Moore. Michigan offered him as a seventh grader. He works with former Michigan quarterback Devin Gardner. So I think the Wolverines will be high on his list later on when his recruitment really heats up. After that, I drove over to the nightcap to see Will Johnson, 5-star prospect in 2022, arguably the most important recruit for next cycle, hence why I went out to see him. Yeah, Will checked all the boxes, even though his team took a 21-7 loss. Will was clearly the best player on the field, and it wasn't even close. I mean, he completely locked down his side of the ball. Another Niners reference. I think Richard Sherman is a guy that, is used as a comparison for a lot of big, long corners. And oftentimes it's a super lazy comparison. Like I hate using Richard Sherman. But in this case, I think Richard Sherman is a great comparison for Will Johnson just because of how long he is. He's willing to be physical. And he's not a super speedy guy, but he is deceptively athletic. And he was the best player on South's offense as well. He made a lot of plays at wide receiver, scored their only touchdown. But he's big, he's strong, he's, like I said, willing to be physical, but he builds his game around his length, his patience, his instincts, his IQ. Richard Sherman's obviously a very smart player, smart guy off the field, same with Will. So I think that's a really good comp for him. And I do think he is a 5-star guy all the way. Obviously, his father, Dion, played at Michigan, and there's a tie there. And I think Michigan is definitely a top school for him early on. The following day in the afternoon, I saw 3-star 2022 athlete Tyrell Henry, kind of the same as Taishan Trent in the sense that he's just an athlete right now that you figure out what to do with. I said he's a guy that's not necessarily highly rated. He's a prospect at a school like a TCU, since I'm from the South, he usually gets because the bigger schools pass on him and then they turn him into a really great player and an NFL draft pick, a la Jeff Gladney this year. So I feel like Henry is one of the more intriguing prospects. He's about 6 foot 170. I think I actually really like him as a corner. He prefers to play receiver. He has some offers at safety. In the game on Saturday, he played quarterback, receiver, corner, safety, nickel, and he was the team's kicker. So he did do a little bit of everything. So he was pretty fun to watch. I thought he was better on the defensive side than the offensive side. And whenever you have a raw athlete like that, I like throwing them in the secondary. So that's where I see Henry. Michigan is talking to him. I don't necessarily know if they're pressing for him early on, but he's a guy that they've offered and are gonna continue to evaluate and monitor and discuss. So I think Henry's one of the more undervalued guys in the state, solely based on his athletic profile and versatility. And the last game, I saw St. Mary's against Brother Rice in a really odd 10-7 game. It wasn't projected to rain in the Detroit area, but it did come down on me at that game. It was windy, it was a little cold. But still, Tommy Doman did the best with the weather conditions. Obviously, Michigan star kicker punter commit. He had a couple of 50-yard punts, including one at the end of the game. He was backed up towards his own end zone. It was 7-7, and there was still about like 7 minutes left on the clock. But obviously, St. Mary's needed a long punt, and he was able to kind of flip the field a little bit. Had a 50-plus yard punt that put Brother Rice back at its own 30. But St. Mary's defense, unfortunately, wasn't able to get a stop, and Brother Rice kicked a game-winning field goal, and Tommy Doman didn't have an opportunity to respond with a try of his own. So he made his own lone extra point of the night, didn't get any field goal attempts, so I didn't see much from him as a kicker. As a punter, man, he has great hang time. Obviously, he has a leg, and the spins he puts on the ball are pretty unique as well. I think, like Clayton mentioned earlier, I think he's going to be a weapon for Michigan on special teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes one of the kicker or punter jobs when he gets on campus. He is an early enrollee, and then later in his career becomes a combo guy. I've covered two of the best specialists in the past, one being Michael Dixon, who is an all-pro punter in the NFL, one being Cameron Dicker, who's one of the best kickers in college football right now. And so I think Tommy Doman is right on par with those guys. St. Mary's also home to Jordan Cannon, a 2022 linebacker with a Michigan offer. Cannon's, maybe 5'10". Usually I don't care that much about height with inside linebackers, but he's not a really thick guy like a Cornell Wheeler was last cycle. His slender frame concerns me a little bit. He flies to the football. He has excellent speed, but his size is the biggest concern for me. I think he's another guy that Michigan's going to continue, even though they have an offer out, continue to evaluate and see exactly where he stands on the board. But those are all the prospects I saw in a big monster weekend.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but that's great stuff. Seeing all those guys, and no rest for the weary. You're going to be in Texas. I know your home state, obviously, EJ, but tell us about that trip, because you got J.J. McCarthy, Greg Crippen, and IMG Academy going up against some good competition down there, and then Tavier Dunlap as well. That'll be your first in-person look at him, right?
Yeah, so some big gains for me. Getting my first look at Tavier Dunlap. He's the only 2021 commit that I have not seen live, so funny that he's in Texas. But I'm running into a little bit of issues for that game. I will be at the game regardless. I bought a ticket to be on the safe side. The media access is extremely restricted, which is weird because Texas is pretty open right now. But for some reason, Austin is limiting media. So I don't know if it'll be my normal coverage, but I will be there to watch him play and give my thoughts and all of that good stuff. So it'll be nice to see him His team, Del Valle, is going up against Austin Westlake, which is one of the true powers in the state of Texas, and the highest classification. Westlake is home to NFL guys like Nick Foles and Drew Brees. So they produce some high level talent. So I'm interested to see. I think this game will be very telling of Tavi, just because he doesn't play against even though he plays in the highest classification in Texas, Austin area schools aren't really all that good unless you play Westlake or Lake Travis. So I wanted to see him against one of those two schools, and we'll get a chance to see him against Westlake. So I think it'll be a really great game to get an evaluation of him. Then the following day, I'll be back in Dallas, and we'll have a chance to see IMG against Duncanville. Duncanville is a perennial power, back-to-back state finalists in the highest classification in Texas. They're the best team in Dallas. They are loaded with D1 talent on each side of the ball. They have some of the best players in the DFW Metro. Three underclassmen, actually, that Michigan is in constant contact. Mario Bohr, who is a Rivals 250 defensive end. Cam Williams, who's a Rivals 250 offensive lineman. And then Jalen Early, who is a three-star 2022 offensive lineman. So Duncanville has some talent that Michigan's looking at as well. And then IMG, obviously home to a slew of underclassmen with Michigan offers, and Michigan commits JJ McCarthy and Greg Crippen. So it'll be nice to get to see those guys for a second time this season in maybe the biggest high school matchup in the country all year long.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. You think you'll be the only Michigan reporter at those games?
I don't know. It seems like they've been looking at my schedule, so try not to put them out anymore, but it's hard.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's going to follow me to Texas.
Well, if they watch the Wolverine TV and give us a view, we'll take it. So I will be out on the road once again. We've seen quite a bit, and we were just talking honestly before we went live here on the show that we've seen just about everybody in state that has a Michigan offer. So, but I'll be seeing Oak Park again. I saw them week 1 go up against West Bloomfield, who we talked about in this show. They're the home of, again, one of those top guys for Michigan remaining here in 2021, defensive tackle Rayshawn Benny. He was hurt. He's been hurt this season. Hopefully he gets to play. I'm looking forward to seeing him play if he's healthy enough, obviously if he gives it a go. But otherwise we'll just talk to him there after the game and get his thoughts. We'll see, what the latest is with him. And then they're playing Southfield Arts and Tech, home of 2024 dual threat quarterback Isaiah Marshall. So we'll check him out as well. A guy who is a freshman, right, in high school, but obviously has some talent in Michigan going after him. So we'll check out all of those games again on the road. So check out our coverage of those games at thewolverine.com. Use that promo code BLUE60 for 60 days for free of that premium content. But we'll catch everybody next time here on the Wolverine TV.